So hello, anyone who's out there already. Thank you for joining us. This is Freemium Mode, the show where we give you all the insight, advice, and tips on everything related to PR and marketing within the video games industry and specifically around B2B area. This is also the first time, as you might not have guessed, that we're on streaming through LinkedIn Live and X. And it's quite an apt one because we are doing it all things related to LinkedIn and using LinkedIn for the games industry. So joining me on this show is my colleague and all-round social media expert, Tamsin. Hi, Tamsin. It feels very strange saying hello to you because we've just been chatting for the last 10 minutes while we're setting up the show, but it feels like I need to do the professional hello here. But yeah, so Tamsin and I will be talking about all things LinkedIn related over the next hour. We have sourced from people ahead of this call, as well as conversations we've had with existing clients, regular questions and kind of concerns that people have had during setting up using their LinkedIn. And on top of that, we have our comments open. So by all means, do drop a comment in with any questions that you might have, any things that you might want to have clarified. And if we haven't already got something lined up that might answer your question, we'll make sure to get to it. But we'll just see how we go. Obviously, this is the first time we're doing it live, so do bear in mind there might be a few technical difficulties, but we'll do our best to make sure you keep that stream going nice. So before we kick off into the specific questions that we have and answer any questions you may have, the first thing I think we wanted just to outline is just, why LinkedIn for the games industry? This is something that may seem really obvious to some of the people on the chat, but other people might be feeling to themselves, well, X, Instagram, TikTok, they seem like more obvious channels for the games industry, but obviously there's a huge advantage, especially for B2B. In using LinkedIn. So I will pause now and I think I'll hand over to Tamsin to explain to us why that is such an important platform to use.
Yeah, sure thing. So, when it comes to B2B marketing in general, LinkedIn is the #1 social media platform. 1 billion professionals use LinkedIn across the globe, and 4 out of 5 of those users drive business decisions, giving it the unique ability to connect professionals to economic potential. So it's a really great platform to showcase your B2B business to users who are actually going to have buying power. So definitely in the games industry, if you're looking for that B2B market, you definitely want to be on LinkedIn. So yeah, really excited to be talking about it today with you, Max, and everyone in the comments and watching us on LinkedIn and X. I think you're on mute, Max.
Told you that difficulty. Don't be sad. I was saying about using listening to us on X as well. I think a lot of this stuff can also be quite useful for any B2B strategy that's going ahead. So to kick us off with the first question, I think we want to kind of highlight how to reach properly on LinkedIn and how to use that. So first question we had on our books was, my CEO is keen to increase our business LinkedIn reach. Are hashtags a good way to do this, and how many should I include in a post? I know, Tamsin, this is something that has changed actually quite recently, so it'd be great to get your thoughts and insight on this one.
Yeah, you're definitely right there, Max. If you'd have asked me this question last year, I would have said, you want to be incorporating 3 to 5 hashtags per post, and then, that would really help your reach on LinkedIn. However, LinkedIn has recently moved away from hashtags and is now focusing on keywords. So by all means, you can still use hashtags, but use a maximum of 1 to 2 conflated, integrated hashtags that are relevant per post to categorize your content for the LinkedIn algorithm. So you can still do that, that's fine. But what you really want to be focusing on is keywords. So ensure you have words relevant to your business and niche integrated into your copy. And that's what's really going to help you get the reach that you want on LinkedIn.
And so when you say conflated and integrated, for those who may not be kind of familiar with how we use that in the LinkedIn world, what do we mean exactly by that?
Yeah, that's a really good point actually, Max. So basically, you don't want to have a list of hashtags at the end of your posts, you want to make sure that they're in the copy. So let's say you want to do hashtag games PR, for example, which is one that us at BGM we use quite often. You want to make sure that you use it the first time that you say games PR in your post. And you also want to make sure that the word games is capitalized and PR. So it's not all uncapitalized, it's capitalized. So basically you can read it really easily and it flows nicely in the post. LinkedIn doesn't like it when you just have a batch of hashtags at the bottom of your post, because usually it thinks it's spam. So yeah, you really want to have it in your text to make it best for the algorithm and best for the people reading it as well.
Yeah, 100%. I think there's something that's really useful in terms of it. It's not just about the algorithm, it's also just in terms of accessibility. Obviously, you have a diverse range of people on LinkedIn. So you don't just want to have something that's all lowercase. If people may have dyslexia or dyspraxia and so forth, they have certain issues with reading text. And so, in order to actually make it easier for them, having those capitalize each word as a word in its own right makes it just easier to understand as well. That's brilliant, and I think it kind of ties nicely into the how LinkedIn is changing and evolving to go into our next question, which is also about that kind of ongoing changing element of LinkedIn and what's right and best practice, and that's around like posting frequency and how often people should be posting on LinkedIn each week, because it's not as easy as it may seem.
Yes, no, completely agree. It's in an ideal world, I'd love, well, the LinkedIn algorithm would love for everybody to be uploading once a working day, no more than once every 18 hours, but once a working day. But let's be real, that is just not possible for most people and for most businesses. So what you really want to be focusing on is consistency. It's much better to post twice a week consistently than use up all of your good ideas in one week and then have nothing to talk about, basically. And according to LinkedIn, accounts that post once a week see 5.6% more followers compared to accounts that post only once a month. So look at the amount of ideas you have and what you or your business are capable of in terms of content production, and then you can set a realistic aim of a posting frequency that you can keep up consistently, and then that's when you're really going to see your metrics going up and getting the followers and the reach and the impressions that you want. But yeah, so basically it depends on your capabilities, but no more than once every 18 hours is the biggie, and just making sure that you post if you can once a week.
Yeah, definitely. I think also you have this sometimes the kind of flip side where frequency, I think, is a really key word here, is that you don't necessarily want to be posting too infrequently, that it doesn't have the benefit to you, but at the same time having the impact of not really agreeing a frequency, and then you get it all hit in 1 week where you have to like 20 posts that everyone wants to go out in 1 week, which is not just not ideal, but it just actually doesn't help you as well. And sometimes it's a difficult conversation that you need to have internally of going, right, we can't post all these posts each day because, yeah, we can just spam our channel, but it's actually going to do more harm than good in doing that. So actually being considerate about what is actually what we want to be posting once every 18 hours, did you say, Tamsin, is like the kind of ideal max minimum wait time between each one?
Yeah, you don't want to post any more than once every 18 hours because the algorithm will then flag it as spam, and then your posts won't get, shown to as many people. So yeah, if you have tons of content and you really, really want to post, then no more than once every 18 hours. And also there's not much point posting on a weekend. LinkedIn is a platform for professionals. Think about your own habits. Do you really want to be going on LinkedIn on your days off, your typical days off? No, not really. So yeah, 5 posts a week is kind of the maximum, and LinkedIn will reward you for it if you're able to do it. But it's a big task. I mean, Max, you and I know we do this day in day out. It is a big task to do. So yeah, just be realistic and set expectations that you can keep up with, and then you'll see the results.
Definitely, and I think it's one thing that we work hard on to say that we prefer starting off small. Whenever we're starting working on a new social media channel with a new client or an existing client, we always say, you know, even if it feels like, you know, it's not that much, starting off small, getting that internal process down really streamlined, and then scaling up. It's not that much harder to start writing more content for each week. But what is harder is if the process isn't there, if the sign-off process, if the scheduling process isn't there, then you're just going to be creating more and more work of the back and forth. So 100% like kind of what works for you is the rule there. And I suppose tied to that is our next question is around like, when is the best time to upload to LinkedIn? We've obviously got the frequency, but like, when about, you know, from your experience, Tamsin, do you find the best time is to post on LinkedIn for kind of a company channel?
I would love to be able to just rattle off now like a list of timings and just be like, yeah, this is when you're going to get the best engagement rate, and so forth. But the answer is there's no definitive time. It really does change from account to account. If I'm going to give you like a broad overview, on the whole, as I mentioned a moment ago, weekdays, as I said, it's a platform for professionals. Usage drops on the weekends and holidays. Reportedly, Tuesdays and Wednesdays are the best. But what you really want to be thinking about is your own specific target audience and what their habits are. So, for example, like times when your target audience are going to be on their phones. Are they commuting? Do they, you know, do you have a lunch break? Like the times in the workday when they're going to have a moment to, you know, pick up their phone and have a look at their LinkedIn feed. I suppose as well, what you can do is you can test timings. That's something that we do quite often, see what works for your specific account. And then also you can look at scheduling software. So we use the scheduling software called Buffer, which highly recommend, by the way, which analyzes accounts and suggests optimal posting times. So if you can have access to something like that, highly recommend it. Yeah, it just analyzes basically that whole specific page, because as I say, it changes from account to account. So yeah, sorry, I can't give more of a specific answer. I'd love to be able to, but
it has come a long way though. I mean, I remember when I started my career and I was doing a lot of social media content writing, and I'd have to be posting it as well. And people were saying, oh, you know, I really enjoy finding the right time to post. Oh, I sometimes post at 1 a.m, and that did really well. And I think there was almost like this dark art associated to it, in terms of like, we're just going to like just experiment randomly. But I think you can make certain informed decisions on when you're going to be posting, and especially if you've got a calendar of content and you know that the frequency has to be like once a day, then you have to find those windows of opportunity, or once every 18 hours, I should say. You have to find those windows of opportunity, is like, when is it not going to like be a disadvantage to post again, and how am I going to integrate that into my process? So it might be that you post every morning because it gives you the biggest time jump between the first post and the second post. That might not be the ideal time, and you need to have the analytics and the legwork, which is quite a lot of legwork, to A/B test the best windows for you to post. But yeah, I think it's come a long way. I think a lot more people are more appreciative that it's not a simple process of like, right, it's these times and that's the only times that you post, because that's definitely how it was a while ago anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And it is a thing of, you know, you can, as you said, you can get into a rhythm of it, of like, okay, right, we found a time that at the moment, because obviously everything's changing with the LinkedIn algorithm all the time, but at the moment that's working for us. So yeah, once you get into the groove of it, it can be better. But I'm going to stop talking for a bit now and move on to our next question, which I think is a good one for you, Max, which is, I really want to start posting more on LinkedIn, but my team doesn't have the budget to hire a graphic designer to make accompanying assets. Is it okay to just use raw images?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. And I think sometimes it can be a bit of a roadblock to some people wanting to actually do social media and do LinkedIn properly. Because I think there's this mentality of like, if we can't do it perfectly, then we shouldn't do it at all. And just as we've been talking about, oh yeah, we've got to make sure you're not over posting, not posting more than once every 18 hours and all that stuff. Equally though, it is only 18 hours. And so there's always an opportunity to post something better, to iterate, to improve and grow. So I think the first response to that question is very much like, don't be afraid that if you can't do everything that ticks every little box on doing social media, but you're still posting on LinkedIn and social media, do that. It's better than not posting at all. But I think the alternative is that, you know, if you want to start growing, if you want to start improving, you need to start from someplace. And especially when people see the advantages of that, when you see that follower count grow, when you see that people are engaging with you or referencing something in a conversation, or I saw that you posted that on LinkedIn, blah, 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 you see the advantage of it, you see the passive advantage of it, and then you can realize that you maybe are able to get that resource internally to design more cool assets and to do more creative stuff as the time goes on. It's a marathon doing social media. It's not a sprint. And actually, anyone who does approach it like a sprint often finds that you get very short-term spikes that look really nice, but then actually just peters off. Consistency is key. So in the kind of like a reassuring point of view, don't worry if you can't get assets and you can't do all the crazy ideas you want to do. That could be a longer term goal. But in the kind of more immediate practical sense, yeah, you can definitely use raw images, but I think you need to be cautious of it. Definitely like using copyright free imagery sites or paying for subscriptions that your company might already have for, you know, other marketing activities is the way to go. But at the same time, you've got the counterpoint of that you're going to have a lot of generic imagery. Some of it's not going to be really speaking your brand or speaking what you want to do. So you've got to make that call, and you've got to have that discerning eye of like, is this image good enough for social media? But definitely don't just Google something and rip it off Google. Companies do that. I've never heard of a story of a company getting into trouble for it, but it's just not best practice. And I think that's part of the reason why LinkedIn is so important, is it's about representing a professional and, you know, considered approach to social media. So if you're doing that type of stuff, then it just doesn't present the image that you are, you know, a mature, considered professional company in the process of doing that. Another thing I would say, and this is something I'll probably speak about later, is that you can't necessarily worry about something being perfect. I think a huge volume of LinkedIn content that does amazingly is quite candid and casual. It might be like quite grainy shots from like the company when it first opened 10 years ago or something like that. It might be a social that your team has gone on, and it doesn't necessarily look like the most perfect, well-produced picture, but actually those are better than you've just got like 10 people standing in the line in a hotel lobby or something like that. You've got actually something more credible and human, because ultimately people buy people. So, you know, when you think about raw images, don't just think about publicly available ones that look professional but may look a bit too generic. Think about ones that you can do on your phone in the office that create like that show the culture of your company, which is a huge content stream on LinkedIn that does absolutely amazingly. But actually,
Yeah.
on the subject, oh sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
No,
Sorry.
I was just gonna say you're so right there. Like, we've had some of our best posts on BGM have been pictures from meetups, haven't they, Max? Like, there's a stat that's like pictures of people's faces on LinkedIn see like 4 times more engagement, and people just like, as you say, people like seeing people. And yeah, so don't be afraid, as Max said, don't be afraid to upload a picture that you've taken on your phone. You don't need a snazzy camera or anything like that. Just showing that you're authentic is the best way to go. Completely agree, Max.
Yeah, I think the other thing we need to consider here is that there's a difference between being professional on LinkedIn and being corporate. And sometimes you need to be corporate because of what your company is and what your company brand is, and that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to be professional, it's about making sure when you're tagging someone, you actually properly tag them, and your word doesn't have the @ symbol before it, and like making sure that the post is at the right length, not dumping a bunch of hashtags at the end. Those are like professional. You know what you're doing. You know how to operate on LinkedIn. But in the other side of it, being corporate is that not wanting to show the human team, not wanting to show the culture and the vibe of your company. And I think we're talking about the games industry here. I mean, this advice is generic to, you know, any company, but for the games industry especially, we're talking about people who are incredibly passionate about what they do and in love what they do, have an opinion about everything. You know, they do take their work home with them, but not because they have to, because they love the industry. They will play games in their spare time. They will engage with the hobbies that are part of the community. So you kind of hiding that away really doesn't present the image that you are a games company, and actually can do a bit more disservice specifically for the games industry. But actually, this ties to like the other question that we've got is this idea of using types of imagery and which is effective. And one that's come up quite a bit, and one question we got is people using slideshows recently, which I believe, and apologies if you did send in this question, do message us and say what if this was wrong. But I'm guessing this is that carousels is what this is in reference to, and basically the question is related to, you know, how do you make one, and are they worth it? And I know this is something, Tamsin, that you're always pushing us always to use carousels. It's like a really good thing to use. So I'll let you kind of answer this one.
Yeah, I love a carousel. Yeah, I agree with you, Max. I'd guess that this is about carousels, which for those who don't know, it's basically like a slideshow PDF document uploaded as an accompanying asset to a post. And they I was about to say they're easy to make. You can make one on Canva for free, and they have templates on there, or if you've got any other graphic design software, you know, that you may have. But I appreciate it's a lot harder, you know, when you're having to start from scratch and you need to implement branding and things like that. So it isn't an easy process. It's not as easy as taking a picture, or, you know, just having one static image. So yeah, it is a little bit of work, which is why I appreciate they may be asking, is it worth it? In terms of how you'd make one, as I say, Canva or graphic design, you want it to be about 4 to 11 pages long, no shorter, no longer, with a clear title page with an arrow signaling where to press. You know, you want to make it super duper clear to anybody that's scrolling on their feed that this is a carousel that they can click through. Then you want to have small amounts of copy on each page with illustrative imagery where possible. You know, you want to make it eye-catching, you want to make it interesting for people and to make them click all the way to the end. And then on the last page, you want to have a call to action. And if you are using a link in your copy, you can have a little arrow pointing upwards towards the link. That's something that we like to advise our clients to do, just to make it super duper clear. You know, people, when they're looking on LinkedIn, they haven't got tons of time. You know, us as marketers, yes, we're on there all the time, but people who are just looking, they don't have the time to work out, oh, where do I need to click? You know, we need to give them it as easily as possible. So yeah, definitely recommends the arrow upwards. But in terms of if it's worth it, as I said, it is a lot of effort. However, users have to click through to view the different pages of the document. So making the asset excellent for increasing engagement rates. Basically, the higher your engagement rate, the more likely your content will be shown to more people. So I'd say definitely, if you have the capabilities to make a carousel, you know, like let's say like one a month, for example, if you can make the time to make one, it's so worth it for your metrics. You will really thank yourself for it.
And there are some hacks, aren't there? I mean, like you can try and create like a generic template that you can then input and edit. I mean, I'm always a big fan of when you see those carousels that have some design element that transitions from each slide, so it looks like one continuous image when you press like the continue key on it. So I think that, but like you can create that template and then, you know, you can edit and amend the various information on it. It's not like once you do one carousel, you never use that design ever again. And there's still ways of you saving time and making things more efficient, aren't there?
Yeah, so true. Like once you've got that template, as you say, you've done the bulk of the work, you can just change the colors if you want to make it look different each time. Obviously changing the topic of the carousel. Changing the copy is always good. But yeah, it is just once you've done it, you know how to do it. You've got the template. It does get easier from there. It's just trying new things. It can be a bit scary, but the main thing is remember that you have to upload it as a PDF. If you try and upload it as images, it won't work. To get the click through that you know you get those clicks from, you need to upload it as a PDF. That would be my big bit of advice. But talking about trying new things on LinkedIn and, you know, coming up with ideas leads very nicely onto our next question, which is, I'm struggling to come up with content ideas for my company's LinkedIn page. Have we got any tips? Max, I'll pass
Yes.
it.
So I think it ties with my earlier thing, but I think the simple thing is there's two factors at play. It's your resources and your comfort level. So first of all, resources, really simple. If you've got the ability to do videos or to upload, if you do a podcast and you record that podcast on or like with cameras and stuff, like that's resources that you can then use and transfer over to LinkedIn. But on a more simple level, have you got stuff on your website that is just sitting on your website? Blogs, reports, white papers, all that stuff. If you're just using that and that's just sitting on your website and you're just expecting people to discover it organically, you know, I'm afraid to say that's not necessarily the most effective way of doing it. And the alternative is that you want to be thinking to yourself and looking at how can we slice this up and use that for social, not just for a post or for like something to fill the calendar. You could think about uploading it as a LinkedIn article or using it as adapting it into a graphic, obviously resource dependent because this all takes time. But a really quick and easy win is just to go, right, we've got this really long article that we wrote analyzing something within our industry. Let's take a few of the key stats from that and let's use those as content for our post and link back to it. And that way, you're not just having a bit of content on your website, you are actually using that content on a more public channel and then driving that audience to the full write-up there. So it helps everything else. And it has a lot more joined up thinking. I think that's one thing that I think we often have to clarify to a lot of people we work with when we start doing social, is that it's not, social media isn't this whole new thing that you now have to think about. It's actually meant to be integrating and knitting into everything else that you do as your company and as your business. So the first point, definitely, like, depending on what you've already got, look at that and think to yourself, what haven't we put on social? What haven't we adapted for social media? And it has to be adapted. You can't just upload it as if it was a white paper, because that's not going to get the results you want. And actually, sometimes it can provide a longer term content if you have a really long article on your blog, on your company website, and that you cut it, and that could be content for a couple of weeks even, if you use it correctly and if you use it appropriately. So first of all, definitely look at what you've got, see what you've got, and see how you can do it. The next line is comfort level. So going back to my point about being corporate and being professional, if you're a corporate brand and you really want to present this very, very strict business-like image, that's absolutely fine. That's going to limit you, though, on certain stuff that you can do. There's a brilliant marketer called Rob Mayhew who does hilarious TikToks that he uploads onto his LinkedIn talking about working in a marketing agency. It's very, very casual. Often it's like got this kind of blurred effect because he's not really used a high quality camera. He's always got these jumpers on. It's always a vertical thing. So you've got the blurred bars on either side. But it works and it's very effective. He gets a lot of engagement on it. But he obviously feels comfortable putting something that casual and jokey and tongue-in-cheek on there, which is great. If your brand isn't like that, then that's not going to be something you want to do. But I would even think something as small as, I've had conversations with people who don't want to put emojis into their LinkedIn posts, which I get, you don't want to have to be putting like smiley emojis and winky emojis, but sometimes the emoji dictionary, if you will, is quite large, and you can use them as bullet points because LinkedIn doesn't allow you to put normal bullet points in. You can use them as a way of breaking up text that's really long form. So there's more creative ways of doing it that actually make something that could be quite dry and could be quite dull a bit more exciting and a bit more digestible. So just because something might feel a bit more casual and informal doesn't necessarily mean that it's not professional. And so equally, whether it's from using emojis, whether it's having a candid shot of your team doing a social, your team having like doing something silly or fun, or showcasing like an employee's like geeky habit. As I said, we're all in the games industry here. We all have those. Like, those are great, and they have a great potential of engaging with people and showing that you're quite a human brand. Even if you're doing something quite dry and B2B, you might not be developing a game, you might be working on some back-end software that is really complex and necessary, but actually showing the people behind it, showing the passion they have, can still be communicated, even if you're not creating like a cool gaming experience for consumers. So those would be the two factors I said. It's very difficult to say exactly what you do, but I think assessing those two things can actually spark the creativity within you and give you options that you can decide to do. But
Those were some really good tips there, Max, actually. You speaking about, repurposing content, it reminded me of a few months ago when we were looking for some new content ideas. And for those that don't know, we have a daily newsletter, the BGM Daily Download, which plug
Good,
is
good
our
plug. Thank you.
is our global games industry news email newsletter. And we were, as a team, we were like, right, what can we do with this, um, and then we decided to make the BGM Daily Download DLC, which is a weekly newsletter that we put out on LinkedIn every Friday, which basically picks out, we've already got everything written there. It picks out the top 5 news stories from that week and gives our LinkedIn audience an overview of what's been happening in the global games industry that week. So that's just an example of how we've taken our content and gone, right, we've got this great information that's been going out daily, but what else can we do with it? So there's lots of different ways that you can reutilize your own content, as Max was saying. Look at anything on your website and there'll be something there that you can work with.
I think you make a really also good point, is that was something that sounds far more complex. This is not, we do it every week. Like you said, it's something that we upload every week, but I can be completely wrong because Tamsin's in charge of it, but it's not this big arduous job usually. I mean, the team works really well and really efficiently to get that sorted on time, but some of these things sound more complicated than they are, but actually the result is because you're doing it, and often you're doing that 5% more than what your competitors are doing, and that's all that you need to do to kind of get the upper hand in terms of more traffic, more followers, more engagement and such. I think that's actually going to that point is really interesting, because that segues nicely into talking about the analytics side. We're talking about content, it's all fun, and I think some people can think that the marketing side and social media production is just writing copy for your LinkedIn profile, and that's a huge part of it. But I think that's only half the battle. I think a thing that we always constantly are doing is we're looking at the metrics, we're looking at what's working, what isn't working, what trends we're seeing, and what the analysis is. And often that's what, to be frank, that's what people can pay for, is more than that, because anyone can write social media. It's obviously that you can write it well and you can write it not so well, but anyone can write social media copy. But it's about checking what's actually working and applying that knowledge into future stuff. That is that's kind of way to start. So this is our question here, is very much what's the most important metric to track on LinkedIn. And I think before we answer the question, I was wondering, Tan, if you could just give us a quick rundown on the key metrics and what they mean on LinkedIn, because for the uninitiated, if you go on your analytics tab on your company page, you're probably going to see a lot of words and phrases that you don't necessarily know whether that's good or not. So maybe that can be a good starting point.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll go through the key metrics, because else I could be here all day. The key ones. So you've got impressions, which is basically how many times your post has been seen in total. Then you've got reach, which is also known as unique impressions, and that is how many individual accounts have viewed your post. You've got post interactions, so you've got reactions, reposts, clicks, comments, which, side note, are gold dust on LinkedIn. The algorithm loves them. If you can get comments on your content, that is really when you're going to see all of your other, metrics increasing. So if you can draw people to comment, whether that's asking them in your post copy, comment down below what you think of this, or whether it's just commenting on other people's things or tagging people in your content, and trying to drive a comment that way. That's a really big tip if you're looking, to increase your page. And then you've also got things like your follower growth rate, which you can calculate to determine the rate at which your followers increasing. So yeah, those are the main ones, but the most important one is definitely engagement rate. So engagement rate encompasses all your interactions, like comments, clicks, reactions, reposts, and assesses what proportion of your audience, so your impressions, actively engages with your content. The higher your engagement rate, the more likely your content will be favored by the algorithm and shown to more people. So for reference, the platform average is usually around a 4% engagement rate. So if your content is performing at 4% or above, then you're doing good. A high engagement rate doesn't automatically equal visible interactions, which is a tricky one sometimes for people to get their head around. So, for example, carousel posts, as we've been discussing, my favorites, carousels, they often generate high engagement rates through clicks rather than reactions, because when people see the content, they're interested about clicking through and reading it, not going, oh, I'm going to go to like button instead. So as carousels generate these hidden engagements, it positively impacts the LinkedIn algorithm, increasing exposure for your content. So basically, don't think that your content is flopping just because it isn't gaining those vanity metrics like the reactions. Of course they're important. Like if you're consistently uploading content and it's not getting any reactions, comments, or reposts, there is a problem there. But the main thing that you want to be looking at is your engagement rate. If you're just going to look at one metric, look at engagement rate would be my advice.
That's really true. That's really true. I think the vanity metrics is a tricky one because everyone wants to have more followers. Everyone wants to have more likes on their post. Like it goes without saying, it feels good. That's the reason why social media has become so prolific. But when you're actually trying to approach this from a considered analytical point of view and trying to understand what content is actually having the best impact for your brand, it is the engagement rate, if I'm right, on kind of establishing that as a baseline and seeing where that goes. And is there any kind of clarity on why we're going down, why the engagement rate is so low, if it's like 4 or 5%? I mean, from my understanding, it's very much like down to the sponsored side of things skewing the engagement rate, because naturally sponsored social media will get a lot more engagement, and so organic social media, which is what we're primarily talking about here, organic LinkedIn, is very much kind of always on the small percentage side. But even then, getting over 4% is amazing and should be something that you should be very happy with.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good point to make, is that the majority of what we're talking about here is about organic. You can go down the paid route, definitely, and LinkedIn is a great platform because it does offer loads of organic and paid options. And you do have the issue with all social media nowadays that it's inching towards more like pay to play, like with subscriptions on X and things like that as well. Like it's definitely, if you want more people to see your content and you're willing to pay, then you can go down that route. But it doesn't mean that if you aren't paying that you can't get those results. Like I know that we've had posts on both our accounts and our clients' accounts which have gained wonderful engagement rates. Like we've had posts get to over 60-70% engagement rates. I would say that a lot of those, again, are carousels. I will keep on pushing it to the day I die. Not every I would just like to say not every post should be a carousel. You want to be changing up your accompanying assets as much as you can to keep your followers interested. If it's just carousel after carousel after carousel, users will just see your content and think, oh, I've already seen that because you've uploaded too much similar stuff in the past. But it is possible to get up above there. And also when we talk about a platform average, we'll also be including lots of accounts that aren't really trying with a social media strategy, upload occasionally, because that's another thing. When you're uploading more consistently, that's when you're also going to be seeing your engagement rates going up. Even if you were just to keep everything else the same, but just keeping up a posting frequency that is consistent, you will see all of your metrics rise. So yeah, it is possible to get higher, definitely. But if just when you're first starting out, just look at the platform averages, and then that's when you'll know, okay, I need to keep on doing whatever I've done in this post or that post.
Definitely. I suppose it ties back to a bit of advice that was in one of those like fitness podcasts a few months ago. Like if you did something 20 minutes every day, consistently every day, you'd be better than like 95% of the people doing that thing. And I'm sure LinkedIn is the same. If you have that consistency, it does give you a huge advantage in that way. So going to our next one, I think that's slightly a different take is obviously, you know, sometimes mistakes happen. We've been there where we've been told some bit of information and it goes up and actually there's a slight tweak or there's a slight bit of feedback. So, you know, when we have, you know, a post goes live and it's all understood that it's signed off, but then it needs to be amended after it goes live. Does that impact the kind of metric side of things there?
To put it simply, yes, it can do. It, as Max, you just said, it happens. Like sometimes the formatting will be wrong, or you might have tagged the wrong person or something like that. You know, we're all human. We're not going to get everything right every single time. So it is true that, you know, LinkedIn doesn't want you to constantly edit your post copy, and your reach will be reduced if you edit more than once. So you can edit once and not have, you know, any changes to your metrics. One edit is fine. Especially, let's say the post's been up for a month or something like that, then feel free to edit. It really won't make a difference at that point. If it's like a few minutes, that's when it's more like, oh, if I'm editing more than once, then, you know, it could be impacted. But if you do need to edit more than once, recommends deleting it and re-uploading on another day. Don't upload it immediately. It would, as we were saying earlier about posting frequencies and not posting more than once every 18 hours, if you upload a post, even if you delete it, LinkedIn logs that as ding, uploaded a post. So if you upload again a couple of minutes later, even though that other post is gone, LinkedIn doesn't care about that. It will just see that, you know, 2 posts gone up very quickly, and it will likely either it will deprioritize your post because it thinks it's spam, or if you have actually uploaded 2 posts at the same time, it can cause the first one to just be, you know, completely disregarded. Sometimes it won't even come up on people's timelines. So yeah, don't upload immediately. Edit only once, and then if you do need to re-upload it on another day.
I think that's really true. I think that's an absolutely succinct way of putting it. And at least you get that one chance to actually make any last minute changes if it does go live and something happens. You have that saving grace.
Yeah, exactly. Because up until I think it was about a year ago, any edits were a no-go. So it's nice that they are giving us a bit of, you know, grace period. So that's always
too. Yeah, that's at least a safe. That is quite nice to know now.
Yeah, definitely. Moving on to our next question now. It's actually a topic that we haven't touched on that much yet. So it'd be really interesting to hear your thoughts on this one, Max. My manager wants us to gain 100 followers by the end of June. So
Wow.
how can you grow a company following fast?
I mean, firstly, I think sometimes you need to have those challenging conversations and go, you know, why do we want those 100 followers? Like, what are those 100 followers going to give us? And we all have those metrics and those KPIs that we have to meet. So, you know, that's sometimes the way of things. But we also need to look as Tamsin went through the other metrics that actually provide value. Do you want 100 followers that just sit there and do nothing? Or do you want to have your same followers but really engaged and interacting with your post, which is only going to feed the algorithm and make your brand look more legitimate? That's a question, that's a conversation that you need to have. But there are some things that you can do when it comes to, you know, growing your following. I think we all are a bit shy sometimes on social media, especially on the corporate side. You know, we can be shameless on our own private social media, but we will like be really restrained on something like LinkedIn. And so when it comes to, say, inviting people to actually follow your account, if you're an admin, you have that ability to do that. You know, that's fine. First of all, I'd encourage it massively. Every company, I think, gets 250 credits each month, which refreshes each month. If you're not using those 250 credits each month, those are 250 invites of people that could potentially sign up and follow your account and grow your follower base. Even if, you know, only a percentage of those people took it, you might only get 50 followers, but that's a huge increase and spike. And there are so many people who are just not inviting people because, you know, whether they feel a bit shy, whether they feel like, oh, I don't know who to invite, all that stuff. can be a real barrier to actually just growing your account. And as you pass those milestones, you look more legitimate as a brand, which is a really good thing to do. Now, in terms of having a filter in place to actually stop the everyday followers who are just following because you've invited them or because they went to school with you or something like that, from people who might be leads or prospects or legitimate conversations like partners that you might want to work with, a thing that you might want to put in place is some form of regular activity that people can opt out of or opt into. And a really easy one is the newsletter, which I think Tamsin mentioned earlier on this call. The idea of having something like a weekly newsletter that only if you're really interested in what that company is offering, that you would usually sign up to and say, yes, sign me up to that newsletter. That might be a small pool of people, but then you know the ratio of those people are probably going to be people who are really interested in what you're saying and what you're offering. And they might be, and you can see, especially with a newsletter, you can see who subscribed to your LinkedIn newsletter. You can cross-reference it with your black book and see if there's anyone that you need to pick up a conversation with, or who you lost track of, and they might be useful people to pick up with at the next event or something like that. So 100% you want to be definitely following and inviting people to follow your account, and then put in some form of activity that provides a filter so that you can separate those that are following out of courtesy or because they know you from a previous job from people who could be legitimate business relationships that you might want to foster. And then that allows it to be just beyond just vanity metrics and actually provides something quite valuable.
Yeah, really good point there about checking the newsletter, Max, definitely. Something you mentioned there actually connects to our next question about sending invitations. And personally, this next question is one that, I have in the past resonated with this. So the question is, I want to grow my network on LinkedIn, but I'm nervous about sending invitations. Is it appropriate to add users I've met at industry events?
So yeah, I think we've all resonated with this. I think anyone who's just slightly socially awkward will have a degree of discomfort just connecting with someone they met casually at an event. So I think I want to get this out of the way first. Is there, and unfortunately it happens on every platform, LinkedIn less so, but it does happen, and you hear these stories. There can be inappropriate behavior, a bit and kind of a degree of people engaging with you in an inappropriate or unprofessional way. And so by any means, if you're doing that, don't. And this isn't, that's wrong. It does not something that we would condone or endorse. But we was trying to say is that it's okay to connect with people that have a legitimate connection with you. And as long as you're doing it in a mature, polite, sensible way, there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's about reading the room ultimately. So when it comes to events, simple thing is, yeah, definitely do it. I used to work with someone who would literally, if they introduced themselves to you, they'd already be linking in with you while they're having a conversation with you. And while that seems really forward, what's quite useful is that not only are you setting yourself up as you're actually creating those connections where a bunch of other people might not, but you are now fostering potential other connections in your network. Often we cannot want to connect with people on LinkedIn because we want them to make the first move. We're like, well, I obviously wasn't interesting enough because they haven't asked to connect with us. But that's probably what they're thinking as well. So then you're in this standoff and neither person is inviting you to connect. So the first port is just make that first move. And a really effective way of doing that is actually in those conversations when you're face to face and go, oh, by the way, I need to go now, but here's my QR code on LinkedIn. If you don't know how to do that, go on your LinkedIn app, click on the search bar. There's a QR symbol that appears. Click on that. You get a QR code. Someone can scan it and they can connect with you there and then. And it just breaks down that thing. And then following up with them afterwards is also really important. Connecting with them, speaking with them, finding an opportunity that is polite and legitimate and mature to engage with them. It might be a post that they've written, or it might be like, are you going to this event that I'm going to? It'd be great to reconnect and contact and speak about stuff. So there is ways of doing it that allow you to break down those awkward barriers and engage with them. But the biggest thing that I think we sometimes overlook is it's not just as simple as going, right, I'm building my network of people who I might want to do business with or work with or whatever, but also you can also position yourself as a bit of a kind of a point of contact between various different parties. If you've met someone at one event and you realize they'd be a great contact for someone you also know who you met at another event, you being that intermediary on LinkedIn, yeah, it might not immediately get you any new clients through the door or any new business or investment or whatever, but it shows that you know what's going on in the industry. And I think the games industry, especially, such a interconnected community that, you know, if you can be one of those people that's helping make those introductions, helping start those conversations, you know, you just look great by doing that. And by extension, your brand and your business look great by doing that. So don't be afraid to use your network to help other people in your network, because that is a great thing and we should all be doing that. But the, you know, TLDR of it is very simply connect with people, follow up with them. You know, that's the purpose of LinkedIn. And you know, the worst they can do is just not respond to you, and then at least you know, and you know, that's a lead that went dead. But it could open up a huge opportunity for you down the line if they're connected with you and they suddenly start thinking about whatever they need your service for. You come back on the agenda. So definitely would be something that I would stress to anyone who's a bit nervous. Don't be, just do it.
And like as well, there's the option, isn't there, when you're sending a connection request, you can add a little note, can't you? So if you want to add some context, like, oh hi, I'm so and so from Big Games Machine, you know, wherever you're from, and you can just add some context of like, oh, I really enjoyed our conversation at Gamescom about, you know, your product or service, and this is why I'm adding you. You know, just to break that, if you're worried they're going to think it's something else, or that it's, you know, you can just really clearly lay out your intentions.
Yeah, I think a really simple thing is people like being flattered. As much as they might try to act like they don't, people like being flattered. And if you're genuinely interested in working with someone, saying that, being honest in that way, you know, it can break down those barriers 100%. I'm looking at the time. We're nearly out of time completely, which is surprising. It's whizzed by, but we've got one more question, which is a kind of quick fire one, I guess, which is very much like, what are some of the quick wins that I can do on my LinkedIn to improve results and metrics? I think we'll both have different ones. So I'm going to let Tamsin lead on the first kind of quick wins that you can do on your LinkedIn. Hopefully this can be something that you can just take away immediately and use straight away.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So to rattle a few quick ones off, I'd say if you're already uploading content, then definitely swap out bulky blocks of text for smaller paragraphs. It's much easier to read. And also if you want to, as Max was mentioning earlier about using emojis for bullet points, if that works with your tone of voice, definitely do that. You just want to make posts super duper easy for your audience to read. Another tip would be, you know, if you want users to comment on your content, as earlier we were saying, comments like gold dust on LinkedIn, comment on theirs. You know, if whether that's your personal account or whether that's your business account, get your name out there by commenting on relevant content. And definitely if you've got an opinion to share, or if you can actually add value to a conversation, then that will really, you know, enhance the comments and make people come to your page. And then I'd say the last thing would be, give your page an MOT. You know, if it's your personal page, you want to make sure that you have up-to-date job information. You want to make sure that your profile picture is up to date, header, your about section. This will make your profile more appealing and show to people that you actually take your LinkedIn seriously. And then, you know, prospective connections and followers are more likely to engage with you. But yeah, those would be my, you know, quick fire tips. What about you, Max?
They're all brilliant ones. Definitely the LinkedIn page MOT. I think once you set it up, the about page and all that stuff, you kind of forget it. But it is something to review, especially as you progress through your career. Keep on doing it. For me, I think like the first one is just connect, contribute, and share. So to my earlier point, connect with people. You know, if you, and even people who you just like their content and find their content interesting, connect with them. You never know where that connection might lead you. You never know how it might help you or help them down the line. So it's great to always do that. You know, contribute to things like Tamsin says, comment on people's posts, share stuff. If you're in the office and you read a story on, I don't know, like IGN, you're like, that's really interesting. Don't just say it in the office, post it on your LinkedIn, or, you know, tweet about it or something. But, you know, we're talking about LinkedIn, so post it on your LinkedIn. And that's really important. You're contributing to the industry, you're starting those conversations, and similarly share stuff that you find interesting as well. Hugely important cannot go, and very, very quick and easy to do. Especially sharing your company's posts as soon as they go live does an amazing job for the algorithm. So definitely be doing that where you can. Second one is very much take what you already do and move it on to social. So like I was saying, if you're reading something and you're wanting to share your opinion about it, oh, this is outrage, this is happening in the industry, or this is really good movement that's happening in the sector, post about it on your LinkedIn. If you're writing a blog for the company page, post about it on your LinkedIn or add it onto your LinkedIn articles. If you've attended an event, say that you're attending an event. Like we said earlier, LinkedIn is meant to integrate into the other parts of your business. So make it integrate and find those opportunities to make it integrate into those parts of the business. And the final one, because I think it's something that can be underrated, and it's a great way if you want to go a bit further, do a bit more, but not write like tons and tons of words or record yourself do something or anything. Start using LinkedIn contributions. They're broken down by sector. There's one for the games industry. I will say that the questions that they ask are AI generated, so they're not the most nuanced or intelligent or most informed of questions, but they're still questions that allow you to contribute and share stuff. If you get enough engagement with them, you'll get a nice little badge saying you're a top contributor, which is always a nice little shot in the arm. But more than anything, it's a nice way of expanding your reach and expanding your involvement with LinkedIn without having to do stuff or overcommit to something. So yeah, that would be very much my 3 tips on that.
Yeah, definitely the LinkedIn contributions. I will say, Max, you're very good at doing the LinkedIn contributions, so I need to take you.
Fallen off, yeah, I've fallen off a bit, but yes, it's something. It does take a lot of commitments, especially. But when you start doing it, it can be a hugely advantageous thing to do. So don't underestimate it at all. Yeah, so those were our top tips, and I think we're kind of at time. So thank you. Actually, I'm very impressed that we actually made it to time. We didn't run over or run under. So I think we've hit the perfect stop in our kind of freemium mode today. So thank you all for everyone who's been watching. I can't actually see the analytics on this, so I don't know how many people are still here. But thank you so much for watching with us. If you've been here for the full hour, if you've only been here for a bit, thank you so much. It's been great having you here. If you've only been here for a bit, do not worry. We will be uploading this whole stream onto our website, I think, at some point soon. And we will be sharing that on our socials. So keep an eye out for it if you missed anything. If there's a question here that you didn't want to ask or wasn't sure about phrasing it, feel free to drop me and Tamsin. Take some of our advice into practice, connect with us, drop us a note and a question that you might have, or directly go to the Big Games Machine website and contact us directly if you have any questions or want to talk about LinkedIn as well as other marketing stuff. I'm going to do the classic YouTube thing now, so make sure to like and share our content and subscribe to our LinkedIn, follow us on LinkedIn, and we're also on X. We are also on TikTok, aren't we, Tamsin, as well?
Yeah.
So that's
BGM Bites.
BGM Bites, yes, our little short form content, which if you haven't got that much time is really useful to hear. Do all that stuff. It really does help us. So thank you if you are doing that, and please do it if you haven't. Also, if you want more of this, obviously we continue to do freemium mode, and that will be continuing to happen. But if you want more insight, you cannot wait for the next episode of freemium mode. We have a fantastic podcast hosted by our amazing Jack and Tom, the Games PR podcast, which covers all things related to the games industry. It has some amazing guests on, myself included, and also talks about some really interesting stuff. So definitely one to download on most of the kind of podcast services that you use, if not all of them. Jack and Tom will probably tell me that they are all of them that we use. We also have, as Tamsin previously mentioned, a newsletter that's available weekly via LinkedIn, or daily. If you go via the website, you can get a daily download if you just really want to get the most of the games industry news that happens throughout the week. And finally, we do research reports, blogs, all that kind of stuff that you can find on our website and also on our social media. So really, the takeaway here is that if you want to find more out about us, if you want to do more, connect with us, add us on LinkedIn, and follow our company to find out all the latest that we are talking about and having on offer. But until then, thank you so much, Tamsin, for your time. It's been great to chat, and thank you to everyone. We will catch you next time on Freemium Mode.